All right, so there's a couple things I wanted to go over. Uh, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, there it is.
Okay. So I want to make this interactive, but I want to go over this information. So the first thing I want to talk about is just, we talked about this at the beginning, how to handle COVID-19. Looks like there's a little bit of a typo there. But it's been really interesting how some people have handled it. Obviously, you want to make sure you're prepared. I think just with everything we've been hearing in the media and then social media, it's important to limit your exposure. This has been a great time to reconnect with family members and friends. Really what I want to talk about today is the importance of just making sure that you're relaxing, you're practicing breathing and meditation techniques, and then you're taking a break just to find ways to rest, relax, and recover. Saturday is a good example, but I've been so stressed out that I started having heart palpitations. I realized that, it's not worth letting the stress get to you. I remember when I was in school, and it was a child developmental course that I was taking, but the professor said one of the worst things that a mother can do when she's pregnant is to get stressed out. Stress is actually worse for you than any type of illicit substance you can put in your body. And so I think it's important that we make sure that we handle stress the right way. And we'll talk about that in a second. But, some ways that you can help improve your health and fitness is by focusing on the 5 fundamentals. And we've gone over these: nutrition, cardio, supplements, weights, and coaching. With nutrition, we've given everybody access to the Venus Nutrition program. So you can go through, and if you go to venusnutrition.com, you click on login, you can put in your username, which is your email address, and your password, which is the word password 1. And you can set up your customized meal plan. We've talked about the importance of cardiorespiratory training. We also talked about heart rate variability training, which we'll talk about again in a second. We've tried to get everybody to set up their .fit program so they can get dietary support recommendations. We've talked about the importance of resistance training, but oftentimes we don't talk about the other fundamentals, and they are detox, sleep, hormones, stress management, and service. So it's important to make sure that you're following an all-encompassing program, not just focusing on nutrition, cardio, supplements, weights, and coaching. But I want to get into in just a second. And if you were on one of the online meetups when we were talking about the importance of cardiorespiratory training, we talked about the autonomic nervous system. And this really is the master controller over all of your systems. Your parasympathetic, so it's basically into 2 different systems. You have your parasympathetic, which is basically rest and release system, and your sympathetic, which is more or less your flight and fight. So it's important to achieve a balance, because if you don't, it can affect everything from your heart function to blood pressure to blood flow to your cholesterol, and the list goes on and on. And so that's why it's so important to make sure that you achieve a balance between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous systems. And one way you can actually monitor that is with heart rate variability training. So I don't know if you had a chance to download the app, but I would encourage you to download the heart rate variability app. And it's a test you can do first thing in the morning, but it'll help you determine what your autonomic response is like. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move on? Okay, so the first fundamental I want to talk about is detox. So one of the things we're planning to do next week is we're going to encourage everybody to do a 7-day detox. Part of that is it's important just to make sure you're them every so often, just like you would change your car's oil every 3 to 6 months. It's important to make sure you're flushing your body of all the toxins and impurities. So the first thing you're going to do is make sure you cut any of the foods that can cause inflammation or bloating. You know, it's going to help eliminate toxins and impurities, but it'll help reset your metabolic rate. And then there are really 3 organs that we're trying to focus on: flushing your liver, your kidneys, and your gut. So a detox can be effective for 7 up to 21 days. So we're going to encourage everybody to do it for 7 days starting next week. And then we'll send out the manual so that you know exactly what foods you should be cutting out during the detox. Cheryl, can you give me an example of a food or a substance you should be cutting out during the detox?
Milk.
Milk? Okay.
Coffee.
Coffee. Susie, what do you think?
Well, anything with like caffeine or dairy, really.
Okay. Mary, what's the one thing you think you probably need to cut out?
Alcohol.
And I think that's been pretty common, especially over the last several weeks. Even if you can just cut back your alcohol consumption, that can make a difference. Tammy, what about you? What's the one thing that you think you would be able to cut out next week?
Well, I've been trying to do this anyway, but I've noticed that it's really easy for me to have some sugar. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on that, especially now that Soraya's home more, she's baking all the time.
That's for me too, sugar.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say sugar can really be the big culprit. So if you can cut out all the processed and refined sugars, that can make a huge difference. The next fundamental is going to be hormones. And this is one we really don't talk about that often, but it can affect your ability to lose weight and to eat right. And it really comes down to making sure you're stabilizing your blood sugar. And I'll explain this in just a second, but you need to understand the role that insulin, cortisol, thyroid, and growth hormones play. And then also your hormones, estrogen and progesterone. And then it's important to look at leptin and ghrelin. So leptin actually helps with satiety, so it helps you feel full. And then ghrelin causes you to want to eat. So it's important to make sure that you're balancing your hormones. And so if you're not stabilizing your blood sugar, what's going to happen to your insulin?
Goes up and down.
Yeah, so if you eat too much sugar, eat too much processed refined sugar, what's going to happen to your insulin?
Goes up.
It'll spike. And then there's an adverse reaction that happens with all of these other hormones. So what's going to happen to cortisol? Cortisol is going to go up. What happens to your thyroid? Thyroid goes down. What happens to your estrogen levels? They go up. Testosterone levels go down, and the progesterone levels go down. So there's this that happens if you're not stable blood sugar. Make sense? And we see this a lot, especially when people first start working. They say, well, you know, my doctor told me I have hypothyroid. And that might be true, but a lot of it is because of their diet and what they're consuming. Because if you're consuming a lot of processed or refined sugars, or you're not eating every 3 to 4 hours and balancing your macronutrients, well, your thyroid levels are going to go down, and they will naturally go down over time. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's also the same with cortisol. It's important to make sure you're managing, which we'll talk about in a second. But if your cortisol levels are up, what's going to happen to your insulin levels? They're going to go up. Your thyroid levels will go down. Estrogen levels will go up. Testosterone and progesterone levels will go down. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the best ways to control your hormones is to make sure that you're getting enough sleep. So we know, everybody knows that the average person needs at least 7 to 9 hours of adequate sleep every night. This is extremely important to help control ghrelin and cortisol levels. Um, when is the most effective time for you to burn body fat?
To lose body fat, you said?
To burn body fat.
When you
At night?
Yeah, so fat's inside the muscle tissue. You can burn fat when you're working out, but a majority of the fat or the calories that you're eating when you're sleeping are being pulled directly from your adipose tissue or your fat stores. So that's why it's important to make sure that you're getting enough sleep. I've never met anybody that's been effective at losing weight that doesn't get at least 7 to 9 hours of adequate sleep every night. And then, especially with what
I
you
don't get, I don't get probably like 5 hours of sleep.
see, and that can be a big problem. So that's why it's important to make sure you're getting enough sleep, because if you're not going to be able to lose fat efficiently. But it's also the same thing if you're trying to build muscle. I, you know, some of my bodybuilder friends, they need to get closer to 10 to 12 hours of sleep every night, because that's when your body's repairing itself, and that's when you're able to start building back up your lean muscle mass. So remember
So, Michael,
yes.
I have a question. So, okay, so for example, if you have somebody that snores, so my husband snores, and so there are nights where, like, I typically get 7, 8 hours of sleep, and if he's not in the room, it's great. But there are nights, obviously, that gets disrupted. So whether it's a great night of sleep or not, how much does that affect it? And like, would naps counteract if your sleep was disrupted?
So Susie, that's a great question, and that's what I was just about to touch on,
Oh.
because there are 4 different stages of sleep, and they repeat every 90 minutes roughly. And it's really that last stage of sleep that's important. We call that REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, because that's really when your body is starting um, to really repair itself and to help with your leptin, ghrelin, and cortisol levels. So to answer your question, if 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 you're at least getting 7 to 9 hours and you're able to get into that REM sleep, basically that dreaming state, then you should be okay. But I'll use myself as an example. My wife loves to sleep with one of her cats, and he's 16 years old now. And so he gets up in the middle of the night, he just starts meowing for no reason.
Ooh.
And so, like, for example, this morning I was up at 3 o'clock. I couldn't go back to sleep. Um, so I think I probably got an average of about 4 to 5 hours of sleep. So I had to lay down and take a nap, and I definitely feel a lot better. If you can take a nap, great. I mean, I think especially at this point, some of us might be able to take a nap during the middle part of the day, but it's important that you're at least trying to get that 7 to 9 hours. Ideally, it would be all at the same time, but if you can at least get uh, 7 to 9 hours, regardless if it's interrupted or not, I think that's at least a good place to start.
I know there's a lot of good apps too that, like, kind of, I don't know how accurate they are, but they, show you your REM sleep and when the deep sleep. I've used those before too.
Yeah, in fact, with the A370, the Polar A370, and then the Fitbit, I mean, even your watch, like an Apple Watch, will do it. But what are some of the things that you can do to make sure that you're able to get enough adequate sleep every night? And that starts with just making sure you're establishing a good nightly routine. So what does that look like for you, Mary Jessie?
If I go to bed at 9, and then
So do you go to bed at 9 every night?
no.
No.
Sometimes I fall asleep on the sofa, and if I fall asleep, then the dog usually wakes me up and tries to tell me to go to bed. Sleep like for a couple hours in the living room, and then I go to bed and I can't go back to sleep right away. And then I'm on my iPad or my phone. And the doctor told me, I had a television in my room, and the doctor told me to take it out because she said it was like I was entertaining people in my sleep. So I took the TV out, and I think it would behoove me to take out the phone, delete the phone and the iPad out as well.
Yeah, so those are some great suggestions. Trying to keep all the electronics out of your room.
Mm-hmm.
I know we don't have a TV in our room. I don't even have an alarm clock by my bed anymore. I'll have my phone um, down on the floor on the other side of the bedroom or in the bathroom. But those are some things you can do. Making sure that you're keeping the room nice and cool. Ideally, the temperature should be about 68 degrees. I know that seems really cold to most people, but typically when when it's a little bit cooler, you're able to get into that deep REM sleep a little bit faster. Tammy, what about you? What are some of the things you can do to help establish a nightly routine?
Um, so for me, I typically try to make sure that I have my plan set for tomorrow so that my mind isn't trying to remind me of everything that I need to remember. So I'll either write down a reminder or put an alarm on my phone, or just try to offload the things that might roll in my mind to keep me busy at night. Um, because it seems like as soon as you try to settle down and go to sleep, that's when all these creative thoughts come and smack you in the face, and it's like, oh, that's great, let me take care of that. And so for me, I have to kind of wind down and just make sure that I've offloaded my thought processes so that it's a calmer going to bed moment.
Okay, great. Susie, what else do you to help can you do to help establish a nightly routine?
Definitely, I think having that schedule. I think somebody else mentioned that, but then also, like, I know I sleep a lot better if I don't eat a couple hours before I go to bed. So, like, just a couple, like maybe 3 hours usually. If I try not to eat before I'm going to sleep, that really helps too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because if you eat a big meal right before you go to sleep, it's going to be really hard to relax and get into that deep REM sleep. And then I think the most important thing you can do is to make sure you try to at the same time, and then you get up at the same time every morning. If you're going to bed at different times and you're getting up at different times, there's no way you're going to establish a routine. So try to make sure that you're going to bed at the same time every night. Establish whatever that routine is. Typically, it takes about 30 minutes to an hour to at least prepare your body to get into a sleeping state. So just think about what type of routine you can establish to do that. The next fundamental I want to talk about is the importance of stress management. There are three different types of stress. There's the good, the bad, and the neutral. Stress is important. There's some good stress like working out, but then there are other types of stress that are harmful to your body, like illicit drugs. It can be acute or long lasting. And so you want to look for different techniques in order to manage stress, whether playing, meditating, reflecting, journaling. I know for me, that's a really big one. Uh, if I'm stressed out, and I did this on Saturday, but I was able to write down my thoughts, and that made a really big difference. It really helped relieve a lot of stress. Even practicing techniques, eating clean, exercise, getting a massage. I know if I didn't my Theragun, I'd be in trouble. It can make a big difference. And then making sure you're spending quality time with family members and friends. So Mary, what are some of the stress management techniques that you think are important? What helps you relieve stress?
Prayer and meditation.
Okay. And what does that look like for you exactly?
Okay. The book I told you that I was reading on peace. It has scriptural references, so I read, and in between it has suggestive prayers, and so I do a lot of that kind of stuff in the mornings before, after I work out. I stick my headphones in and I put on spiritual music, and then I take the dog for a walk, and that releases everything.
Awesome. Great. What about you, Susie? What do you do to relieve stress?
Usually when I'm most stressed, if I go for a run, that helps a lot because I kind of think better, but at the same time, it's where I do my best thinking, but it's also just where I cannot think if I need to. So I think going for a run definitely helps, or even a walk at night.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. What about you, Cheryl? You're on mute. You're on mute, Cheryl, you're on mute.
Now I got it. Now I'm off. Well, remind me what the question was again. I'm sorry, I was.
What are some things you do to relieve stress?
Well, working out definitely helps relieve stress, and I started knitting, so I do that to kind of help.
Okay, very good. What about you, Tammy?
So for me, I do pretty much everything that they've said, although knitting is not yet in my wheelhouse, but exercise, prayer, and listening to uplifting music. But then for me, I find that if I really have a situation where I cannot see a solution or a way to handle this, I just have to talk it out. Like as I'm talking, it's like all of a sudden there's connections that are made. And so I'll just call a friend, or I'll just say, listen to me. I just need to hash this out. I'm not looking for you to solve a problem or give me advice, but just let me go through this process in my mind out loud. And it really helps me to kind of solidify paths that I might find answers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. That's one of the reasons that I like to journal, because I can sit down and just write it out, and it's just a way for me to try to process everything. That's great. So then the last fundamental is service. Really, everything we do should come back to serving others. And I was listening to something last night where they were talking about the importance of service. And, you know, we can truly be happy when we're helping others. I know it's hard, and I wish I was trying to find the quote last night, but the gentleman was talking about the Red Cross in Canada. Tammy, did you happen to be on that by chance? The fireside last night?
Oh no, the kids and we did something else.
Okay. Well, the gentleman was just talking about the importance of just making sure you count your blessings. But he was also talking about how important it is to serve others. But regardless of what your goals are, they need to be bigger than you, and you need to start with your inner circle. It's important to make sure you're trying to influence those around you to make positive, long-lasting, positive choices and to achieve long-lasting results. But with that being said, I just want to open it up to discussion. Do you have any questions or comments about anything I've gone over?
Yeah, I think, Michael, there's one thing I want to just add, especially since we're just 4 women joining this talk right now with you, is for me, trying to navigate menopause, which is a really odd time with hormones and changes, has taken all of these suggestions and put them in a whole new category, because there's lots of times that I'll have menopause insomnia, or I'll have menopausal stress, or I'll have, any of these things that you've mentioned. It's different because my body is going through withdrawals from the progesterone. And so I've just learned that I have to just really be kind to myself, that there's some things that I can control and other things I cannot control. And so as I'm doing all that I should and following the regimen that is outlined, and I'm still not noticing a change in how my clothes fit, I need to be okay with that. I need to find a way to just say, it's not my month to have a great experience with the fitness end of my life. But I did improve my cardio or look for other wins. And so I just throw that out there because I've had to put a different lens on to find success as I struggle against my own body and hormones.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, Tammy. I appreciate it. Can anybody else relate?
Yes.
Yes.
Mine was so bad at one point that the mood swings and everything else was, I couldn't think straight, couldn't sleep, the whole 9 yards. And I can't take a hormone replacement because cancer runs in my family. So my OB/GYN suggested that I talk to my general practitioner about it. And she put me on a low dose antidepressant. And it takes care of everything that you would normally, that the hormone replacement would do. So right before this happened, I was weaning off of it and went to a lower dose. And I stopped it for like 2 days. Right now is not the time to do that, but so I'm even all the time as long as I take it. And then 2 days without it, and all this emotion comes up from the bottom of your feet is the only way it overwhelms you. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to take it today and see what happens. And it was almost instantaneously that I had a different take on life. So the other thing that has helped is what's it called? Rhodiola. So every morning now I take the antidepressant, the rhodiola, and the Recover and Build. If I don't take them every morning at the same time, I have a harder time working out as well.
Okay.
And the hormone stuff plays in all of it. If the nutrition is off, and that's the other thing, you need to stay away from any processed foods. If I ate muffins last week, and that I was like, okay, why am I losing it? And then I started looking at what I had eaten, and I thought, okay, that's it. It's the muffins, because it's got all kind of additives and whatever in it. So I said, okay, so that's reading labels galore when you buy anything, like the nitrate-free lunch meats. You got to read that too and see what's in it to make sure that it doesn't have what's it called, natural flavoring. That's another thing. MSG throws you off completely as well. So there's so many things out there, and then it's learning the right supplement that you take together. That, like, I take maca root. I was taking I forget what it was. Anyway, my doctor suggested I quit taking the one that helped me with my memory. Yeah. She suggested I stop taking it. She said, because if you have emergency surgery of any kind, that it's a possibility they would have a problem with your anesthesia. So I said, okay. So you become a guinea pig is what it is, to find the right things to make you balance.
Well, thank you very much for sharing, Mary. What about you, Cheryl? You're on mute again.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I am definitely gone through all that. And for the last few years, I've struggled with bouts of insomnia. So caffeine is a trigger for me. So if I drink a lot of caffeine, I'll start having my hot flashes again. I can't take hormone replacements because of history, breast cancer. So, and I've gone through menopause probably a few times, because once through treatments and then now at an older age. So yeah, caffeine, and I haven't actually, now it's kind of I'm on the flip side of it, so I don't have as many anymore. I actually don't really have any unless I start drinking a lot of caffeine. So I just as much as I can.
Okay. What about Susie?
I'm not quite into menopause yet. But the hormone thing is definitely interesting because actually with my last, well, I think a year and a half ago, I had really low testosterone. Like she was like, you're way far, she was like, you're not anywhere close to premenopausal or anything like that with blood work. But for some reason, my testosterone was really low, which is weird because of how much I worked out and everything else. And I could definitely feel it like in certain moods I was having and all that. So I think even no matter how old you are, like it's really important to stay on top of that kind of thing.
Mhm. And that brings up something we used to talk about quite a bit, detox, but there are a lot of chemicals, man-made chemicals that mimic the molecular structure of estrogen. And so what it can do is if you absorb these chemicals, whether it's through the fabric softener you're using on your clothes or whatever the case might be, but if your estrogen levels, it basically makes your body think that your estrogen levels are a lot higher than they normally are. And then what happens to your testosterone levels? They naturally drop. So that's why it's important not just to detox from certain foods or substances, but also from all the man-made chemicals and the toxins and impurities that we're either absorbing or putting into our body. So very good. Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
Can you sleep too much?
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too much of anything is not good.
Mm-hmm. So I know even for myself, like I think sometimes on the weekend I can catch up on sleep. I don't really buy into that because I'll sleep a little bit longer, but I just feel groggy. Don't you? Like if you sleep too long, don't you feel groggy and just kind of out of it? I feel a little bit depressed.
Yeah.
So counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a fine balance.
And sometimes people will use sleep as an escape rather than having to deal with something. They'll just sleep in and miss it, or they'll have a nap in the afternoon just as a way to kind of tune out. So it really depends on what is the motivation for why you feel the need to get that extra sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good point. Well, any other comments? Is there anything in particular that we can do to help you?
Open up.
Just let us know when you're open. Yes.
So, like I said, we're planning to be, or at least I'll be at the gym for a few hours on Friday. If any of you want to stop by, and I know we've given a lot of you equipment, but if you want to drop off the equipment and get more equipment, you can. We're still planning to do the virtual training through May because we know we'll have some clients that'll prefer or they'll feel more comfortable just staying at home. But we are planning to hopefully open up in some capacity next week. So as soon as I know the details, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Will you text us the time Friday in case we want to drop this stuff off?
Yeah, so I'm planning to be there from 8 to 10
Okay.
on Friday. So 8 to 10 on Friday. And then Saturday, we're planning to do a workout at 8. So we might do it in the gym or we might do it in the parking lot, but it'll be just a small group of clients. So
Chance of rain Saturday. You may want to check that.
well, that's what they said. That's what they said on Friday, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Supposed to rain all day Friday or most of the day, and then we didn't have any rain until Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
So, All right. Well, thank you so much for participating. If there's anything we can do to help you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Michael.
Enjoy that birthday cake.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.